Welcome back to the State and Local Sports Show. It is high school football bowl season extravaganza, palooza, whatever you want to say. 4 teams in the records coverage area still alive. 3 of them section champions already. Manteca, Division 4. Amador, Division 6. Brookside Christian, Division 7. St. Mary's plays in the Division 1 championship against Folsom at 6 p.m. on Saturday against Sacramento State. I think one of the more anticipated games for this area in a few years. You've seen both of those teams play, and Mark did a column on that this week, recordnet.com, breaking down St. Mary's versus Folsom. What is your outlook for this game? One that at least computer simulations says should be a point or two, should be down to the wire.
It should be a very good game. You look at the comparative scores with Oak Ridge, and you think, well, St. Mary's is a huge favorite. However, Folsom, beat Del Oro 42-7 when Del Oro was the number 1 team in the second section, and Folsom also had a pretty impressive win in a couple of other games. So I think it's going to be close. St. Mary's has an edge in the line in the interior for sure. Folsom has better linebackers. Ariel Nagata going to Washington as a force. Folsom really mixes it up well on offense. Folsom does not have a running back like Dusty Frampton, who could be a big difference for St. Mary's in this game. And Folsom, they have some good skill players, but St. Mary's skill players match up well with them. The quarterbacks, if you look at the stats, you'd think that Joe Curry of Folsom might be better, but there's a lot of reasons why his stats are better. They're in a better league. St. Mary's had a lot of routes in their league, so it kind of held down the numbers, I think, for Jake Dunaway. I don't think there's really a difference in those two. I think Dunaway is just as good, maybe a little better. So, it's going to be really interesting, and I think the kind of the revenge factor that St. Mary's has had for all season, trying to win this game, trying to get back to it, playing St. John Bosco, exposed them to the super elite level. Folsom's been at the super elite level themselves just 2 years ago, so they both know what it's like to play at that really high level, and it seems like they're both getting up to that level at the end of the season, which is where you want to be. So that's kind of how I break it down. If you had to push me for a pick, for sure, I'd probably give the edge to St. Mary's.
When you're in those games and you get inside the red zone, it's so important to be able to cash in, and that's where I see a major advantage for St. Mary's. I mean, Dusty Frampton and that line showed it last year. He had 4 touchdowns against Folsom. And I mean, I think besides the routes, that's part of the reason why Dunaway doesn't have nearly as many touchdown passes as Curry, is that Frampton has 33 of them at this point. And I know that you see there's some guys with some decent rushing yards on Folsom, but they don't, like you said, don't have that traditional power to be able to punch it in. I think that also helps St. Mary's defensive decision-making once they get pushed back inside the 10. I definitely like St. Mary's in this game. I totally agree with you that Oak Ridge, that comparative score, especially with high school, you can't really say this is definitively why they're a huge favorite. And I just think that with their lines and the fact that you can't really replicate the kind of probably, I don't want to say anger, but the emotion they'll play with after coming so close the last 2 years, it's hard to feign that, I think. Manteca football, as we mentioned, also alive. They, as opposed to 3 years ago, they played in a NorCal bowl game. They lost a heartbreaker to Enterprise of Reading. That was back when it was like the NCAA tournament bubble teams. You put forth your best effort. You're a section champion. I hope they pick me for a state game.
I hope they pick you. Yes.
No, they can enjoy practice. They can have an easy week of recovery practice and know they're going to be playing on December 9th or 10th. You guys do the bowl board every week for Northern California, Southern California. Those are your human analysis projections. There are also some on Max Preps that are kind of computer numerals and rankings. Some of the teams that have popped up as potential opponents for Manteca have been Sutter, who's a Northern Section powerhouse, a Wing T team. I believe they have over 10 section titles now. Sanger, unbeaten in the Central Section, of course, unknown to fans around here, just like Chowchilla was for Sierra last year. And also Cardinal Newman, a very good team with a third-year starting quarterback in Jordan Brookshire, and that team's only loss so far is to St. Mary's. Any guesses right now who they might play, and who should they want to play?
I think you should want to play the toughest competition you can to really prove you, especially for Manteca, because they're a young team. And even if they don't go that far, they've got so many very outstanding juniors that they should want to play the toughest team they could, because it's not only going to help them this year, but it'll help them down the road, because they're going to be outstanding next year. And that would be my suggestion, or my hope. Sutter, I get the impression from talking to people at the CIF, which I'm able to do, and I do a lot of it off the record regarding the bowl games. I just get the sense that they're probably going to be, held down a little bit in their division, just because it is really a small town team. Yes, they did beat Palma, and they have had some impressive scores, and their computer ranking might be kind of high, but I think they're probably going to be a little bit lower. And the other thing to keep in mind when you look at these teams is that Manteca definitely is going to be, assuming that Oakdale wins their game against Christian Brothers, that Manteca would be higher than Oakdale, and they'd be higher than Christian Brothers too, because they beat them both. So I think Manteca is going to be higher than those teams on the board. Oakdale beat Campolindo, so Campolindo wins. So that's going to put Manteca a little bit higher on the board. The team that I thought they might play for a while, because the Central section has all these teams. There's 3 teams that are going to the Central section that are going to play in the North, but we don't know really which 3 they're going to be. So it makes it harder to guess, or harder to project. I was thinking that Manteca playing Sanger would be a good matchup based on the traveling. But now I've looked at it and flipped Sanger to the south and put Selma in the north. And I think the boards on both sides are more balanced and they make more sense, a lot of matchups. So I have Manteca actually playing Cardinal Newman out of Santa Rosa in their divisional game. It'll be the division higher than Oakdale, and Oakdale playing Sutter. Cardinal Newman does have a loss to St. Mary's, but if St. Mary's wins against Folsom, that's just going to make Cardinal Newman look even better. So I don't know if that's going to be a problem.
Last year, Sutter was Sierra's opponent in the Northern California Bowl game. Sutter was a host. Because not a lot of bleachers at their field, also because potential bad weather, they have grass. They played at River Valley and Yuba City to kind of get the more stands, get the turf. If Manteca were to be considered a host team, is their field Gus Schmidt possible? I mean, a good amount of stands and a well-kept field, but rain could turn it into a mud pit. I wonder, would they have a chance to host there? I know they love it there. Or would it be at Lincoln to avoid any problems with the weather and kind of damaging that I don't want to say neutral field, but just kind of letting the best team win despite the circumstances?
Yeah, it's possible, but I think the CIF would like to have it at home host sites as much as possible. And a lot of it depends on what happens in the other games and who's traveling and who isn't. A lot of people think the highest seeded team should be hosting in every single game, but that's just not possible, because you can't have one team from one section traveling for all of their games if they happen to be lower seeded. So there's going to be little trade-offs that go on in this. And like if St. Mary's wins their game, they're probably going to be at home the next week hosting the loser of De La Salle, the Freedom game. And then you have, so if St. Mary's is at home and then Del Oro wins their game, and Del Oro traveled last year, if people remember, to Bakersfield, well, the CIF's going to say, okay, Del Oro, you're going to be at home. You're going to be home this year for your playoff game, your bowl game. So then they get down to Manteca, the next team on the board from the Sac Joaquin, which would be higher than Oakdale or higher than the D3 team. And they're going to say, well, you guys are on the road this time because the other two are at home. So there's a lot of that sort of happens as they go through these matchups. And so I think, I think they could have the game at Gus Schmidt Field, but I think there's probably a 50-50 chance they won't.
You just did a great job of explaining how the CIF, if it's much more than just, okay, this team has a better resume, they get to host. And, of course, there's so many schools and plenty of schools with financial limitations. You saw Amador rally around their small-town team and produce over $9,000 in fundraising. That's what it's about. It's balanced throughout the state, balanced for each team, saying, okay, you want to have to travel 2 or 3 weeks in a row. I for sure got a lot of questions about Amador, probably the strongest of the 4 playing games in Northern California, saying why do they have to go 130 miles to San Francisco. As you mentioned, that's why, and plus the team they're playing, Lincoln of San Francisco had to travel last year, same with Brookside Christian and Biggs. And I think it also helps it's not quite like the ironically the Major League Baseball All-Star game, which they decided today or late last night is no longer going to determine home field. It's so hard to say when you get a team like Biggs from the northern section. Yeah, they're 10-2, they can run the ball, but do they face the same kind of speed? And Brookside, an 8-4 team, all kinds of speed, but yeah, can they compete with the bodies of those teams? It's really impossible, and I think in some cases, to say who really should be the highest higher seed. So I think it helps to have that. I kind of changing my tone from earlier in the week when I really think about it. It kind of helps to have a different way of deciding where these home games are. And I'm sure it's one of those where I or other reporters might criticize it at times, but it's certainly not a job I want to have, trying to tell which school has to go where.
Yeah, it was Mission of San Francisco, which played Stone Ridge Christian,
That's
and they
right,
traveled,
Mission,
and there was only one play-in game, and now there's two, so there's a little differences to it. I generally think in Northern California people get more upset, more follow the stuff about who's home, who's on the road, much more than they do in Southern California. In Southern California, in the southern section, they have pretty much a policy that every team needs to play on the road at least once. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're the number one team in the state like Mater Dei. Mater Dei's second playoff game, they had to go and play at Vista Murrieta. Well, they just think if you're going to be a championship team, you have to win on the road. And they're just a little different mindset, I think, for some of these teams. And Amador was the top seed team. And then, you can't have the San Francisco team. The other point I was going to make is, the seeding, you're right about seeding teams that really don't play each other, but we did have last year, we did have games. So the CIF not only has computer rankings, our rankings, but they also have what happened last year. And Mission of San Francisco went to Stone Ridge and got beat pretty bad. So this year, Lincoln of San Francisco definitely is the lowest team on the board in the north. But at the same time, you can't have San Francisco teams traveling every year. So they're gonna go back and forth. So that's why Amador is on the road this time, and last year and Brookside is at home. So I would guess that next week, if both teams win, that Amador will be at home and Brookside will be on the road, just for the same kind of trade-off that goes on when these commissioners get together.
It's a fascinating time to check out CalHighSports.com, where their Gold Club membership less than $20 a year, less than $2 a month. They recently did a live video, a bowl board for Northern and Southern California. You can see that archive. They also have just the story format, the latest list of those teams. That's one of the most popular high school sports topics in the state right now, and that is definitely your source for it. The record this weekend, we will have Rich Estrada Black Hat football at the Brookside playing game on Saturday. I will be at St. Mary's in Folsom. And Mark, thanks for joining us as always, man.
Thank you. It'll be a great weekend.
Oh, and stay tuned. We have a retroactive St. Mary's Oak Ridge pregame show right after this, so you can listen to how off we were before that game started. All right, welcome back to the State and Local Sports Show, here with a live edition before the Division I semifinals of St. Mary's, here with Mark Tennis of Cal High Sports. And Mark, your just general thoughts on this game tonight. It's the first time St. Mary's has hosted a semifinal in 9 years, and just a big deal. It's really tough to get a high enough seed to host one of these.
That is true. Very difficult. It's going to be a probably really good game. We thought this would be the case before or when the seedings came out, 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. This is a 2 versus 3 matchup. Oak Ridge only lost by 1 point to Folsom. So, we know they're going to be a tough opponent. I saw their game last year when they lost in the semifinals at Elk Grove. I think they were probably better last year because they had Ian Book, the outstanding quarterback who went to Notre Dame. Elk Grove might have been better last year too. We'll just have to see. But this should be a great game. I'm really looking forward to it.
St. Mary's got a good test in terms of a quarterback who can run last week, and Jacob Perez of Pittman. They get another one this week in Marco Baldacchino of Oak Ridge. That's going to be key for them to stop. They're online considered about a touchdown favorite. Should be a great game. What do you foresee happening tonight?
I think it'll be a pretty kind of medium scoring game. I was worried a little bit about St. Mary's because they haven't played anybody very good for such a long time because their league is pretty weak. And Oak Ridge is not. But I think their 44-7 win over Pittman showed that was a good win. Now, Pittman's a pretty good quality opponent. So I think this will be a game probably where both teams are in the 30s, like 35-28, 35-27. I do think St. Mary's is probably going to win. But it should be very interesting.
I do like St. Mary's close, and you can't trade in the experience that a lot of these guys have, whether it be those who were just around for the Folsom loss last year, or
exactly.
the 5 guys who were around for Grant 2 years ago. But it should be a great one tonight. Winner gets either, as you mentioned, number 1 Folsom or number 4 Elk Grove next week at Sacramento State, probably Saturday, but either Friday or Saturday. And thanks for this quick new pregame
quick
show.
One, right from the St. Mary's weight room. This is a great facility. They should be proud of this place.
Thanks, Mark.